Hello, friends, family, keepers of the faith, to blog 26 or episode 26, dated the 21st of August 2022. And we're constantly now moving forward during this year, and a lot of it has been with me not at work. This week I've not been feeling particularly well. We'll come across that a little bit, but we always start off with the news. And remember that the news is just to date this broadcast. It's not for me to have too many opinions on. I'll probably mention a few things on it, but so we start off with the war, and I've written down some notes. That's why you'll see me looking down a little bit more than facing that camera up there. But just before I do that, just to let you know, there's some exciting news today in the fact that there is a new broadcast from Panther that's going to bring back some old familiarity in Friends back together not for one more time, I hope, but for many more. That's going to be about 2 or 3 hours in length, and we know how the Panther, with his slick production values, will be on this, and I believe it's going to be out later today. Just to let you know, I'm recording this at 5 a.m. Well, it's gone a little bit past 5 a.m. now, which is why I've got the backlight on and why you see there's a little bit of light coming through. And I thought it would be best that I record as early as possible and then get this out. So my brain is not exactly fully awake at the moment. I've got myself a little drink to the right hand side, and I just really want everybody to have a fun day looking at Panther's video, and not worrying about how much space and time they've got to watch this load of piff, if you want to call it that. So I do recognise that anything that I've got to say is secondary pretty much to that particular show. And of course we've got the lovely Meister to look forward to tonight at 7 o'clock. I'm not quite sure what lovely game playing skills we're going to be seeing, in his subject line, but I'm pretty sure I'll see you all there with my little bit of admin duties that I do, and spurring him on to get to level 2.5. I don't expect level 3 ever, but hey, that might happen. So going back to the news, okay, the war, it's now nearly 6 months old, and I've been reporting on it ever since I started the blog. Based on my comments last week on nuclear reactors, Putin has said that UN officials are granted permission to inspect the Ukrainian reactors damaged in the war. And as I was sort of like reviewing my news that I prepped, a broadcast came out saying there was smoke coming out of the Crimea, and that it was going to be very difficult to investigate what exactly is going on when the Ukrainians want Russia out, but they're allowing UN to come in and inspect things. So that was a little bit of really fresh news. And like I say, I just want the war over with. The nuclear part of this scares me. I don't think it scares me more than I was in the 80s, but it sort of like has got my, what do they call, spider sense tingling back to those days, and some emotions about how I felt in the 80s are coming back. Do you know what I mean? In the 80s I didn't understand it. Now older, I understand it and know a little bit more about whether a threat is real or not, and this one feels pretty real to me. Okay, let's talk about energy, because it's on everybody's minds. Shops are facing closure based on soaring prices and expect to have a closure rate in January, February next year more above than the average. So we're experiencing our own issues in how we're going to pay our bills. What this is basically saying is that we're expecting a price increase in the next month because it's done quarterly. The next quarter, which would be early next year, it's going to go up again. Forecasts at the moment are between £5,000 and £6,000 on average. This can only mean bad things, therefore, for shops, and shops will therefore close. What are you going to do about this, government? That's what I want to know. Now, we know it's a worldwide problem, but you've got to do more than what you're doing. That's just a small opinion from me. I don't have the solutions. This is why they're paid money to come up with those solutions. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about Amazon Prime. UK Prime subscriptions fell 590,000 in the second quarter of the year. This is a surprise for Amazon due to how their shopping is structured. Yes, all this week I've seen some news about how Disney Plus's revenue is coming in and their subscription, and Netflix, and how theirs is starting to go down. This is not unexpected from a point of view of TV subscriptions and money from my point of view, because we're all expecting huge bills. We've got to diminish somehow, and when you're looking at TV and what's free and what's not free, you start to go, right, I can do without this, and you take that away so that you can pay for other things. But yes, I'm a bit of a surprise, because during the pandemic, Prime subscription must have gone up because of the amount of people that were buying online and then getting free delivery because you paid for a Prime subscription, which gave you free postage. This gave you the option, obviously, of being able to watch Amazon Prime with their TV and films. So yeah, a downturn in that seems to indicate that people are pulling their belts in a little bit more than I thought. We then talk about the TV license, which sort of like links with this. Now, we just got our TV license repayment plan in ourselves, my mother and I think £159. My mother gets a pension, so she is not exempt. Me being of my age means I need to pay it as well. But I was looking at a few news articles, and many are considering the ordering of their bills to pay, and considering that the TV license will be last due to the energy prices and the cost of living. So yeah, think about this, BBC, and your TV license and the cost of living. Many people who go into food banks to get their food, many people are, basically shrinking their belts a little bit on what they're going to be buying, with school uniforms and everything just about coming up to go back to school. And the TV license, which can't actually capture any detail about whether you watch it or not, is out there asking for £159 of your money for this year when you're watching YouTube. What my mother and I, we had a little chat about it. I said, Mum, put the money to one side if you want, put it in the envelope, feign ignorance, pay that if a reminder comes in or they threaten legal action, which I don't think they can do. They've got to prove that we watch it, and we even watch iPlayer. So at the end of the day, with our bills coming in and me not knowing a little bit about my job, I'm just thinking, Mother, I'll give you my half now, which I did. I gave her half of my money towards that bill, and I said, stick it in the envelope, keep it there, and we might use that for something else later on that's much more present, like the gas bill. And then the last bit of news that I got in was Cineworld. Now, Cineworld is quite a big conglomerate when it comes to the cinemas that are out there. Obviously, you've got the Odeon and so forth. They're expected to file for bankruptcy this week. The pandemic hit them hard with the latest cost of living and the people going to the cinema at the moment. They've had enough, and basically they're filing for bankruptcy this week. That's probably going to be the big story next week in regards to another huge chain going under. And that's the end of the news. So I want to talk a little bit, really, because the one thing that I discussed in Discord, and what I used to do at this stage after the news, was talk about me and my job situation. And as you know, a lot of people know that I've been off under stress, and I've not been feeling very well, and the medication they've got me on at the moment is making me feel giddy and lethargic and cross-eyed and all sorts of things. I took my medicine literally half an hour ago. My vision is blurred, so if this camera is going in and out, I can't really auto-correct it. And the reason for that is that my vision's blurry as it is, and I'm having to read a page and everything on my phone and all sorts of stuff. But I wanted to give that good news that I gave a week or so ago to Discord, because I never actually really told anybody really what it said. I can't go into great detail, but basically it's as follows. And by the way, there is no news information, so I got this information on the 10th of August, which is 10 days ago. So I'm expecting something this week. It basically said that my union rep had a positive conversation with human resources at the place of my work. And this is what he wrote down. He said, while she did not want to make any promises, she is keen to help and has agreed to go to explore your job title remaining the same, or at least having something in it to recognise a more senior level. Obviously, once she's explored this further, we can have a conversation about what you'd be willing to agree to. Well, that's all good news, isn't it? I mean, in some ways I can expect that I'm moving into a bigger company, and so my management level was not recognised. I mentioned that all the way from the start. All I said is that you can't expect me to drop to analyst, because that's a drop of 9 years worth of experience. You know, this is what's stressing me out, because you are having an effect on how I'm going to be able to earn money in the future, because I'm no longer a manager. I'm no longer in the band that gives me the money that would be able to keep my mother going and me going in the cost of living. And you're also expecting me then, therefore, to continue training to become a manager when I've been a manager already. That's the whole point. The whole point of what's stressing me out. I've never been stressed about what work's been given to me. And the reason that I've been off work for so long is because how they've treated me. And I want to make that perfectly clear. The next bit is the last part, really. It said, I've also explored the option of alternative roles with her. She seemed to think that this was still possible. It was just a matter of catching the role before it went to advert. I understand this is something that you may have been told before. I think this could be a matter of just ensuring that certain departments are aware of your availability for certain roles. And that goes into something that you've probably seen in another blog, where I said that they were looking for jobs but they couldn't find anything, and that the harmonisation process was closing. So my aspects of that was, why can't they keep the harmonisation going? And then look, when a job does become advertised, they offer it to me. Because the one thing you can't do is have a job and not have multiple people go for the job, because that would be unfair to them. But they recognise that they made a mistake with matching me when I was 2 bid across. So those were the 2 bits of good news. And I wanted to relay those, because the only real people that knew what that was my mate Meister, who phones me. He actually has a phone conversation with me to find out how I am, which I totally appreciate. And the people in Discord are the people that are sort of like so close to me, but I don't really write down things too much, because writing down something means it can come up and bite you on the arse later on. So sometimes you have to be a bit ambiguous. But anyway, that's my bit of news out of the way and what's going on with me, and we'll talk about what I've been doing this week and all that a little bit later on. So now we get to the shout-outs. So the shout-outs this week are Robert's Retro Gaming, LFC Gamer, Highlander, Steve's 8-Bit Gaming, Cauldron of Stardust, Jambon, Colin Jones, Wee Bob Art, Colin Ferguson, Martroid, GTB Films, Milfy Swimbuckle, Steve Baxter, my old mate Dottie, who actually lives in the same town as me, Panther UK, Rocket Bunny 71, and Stevie Paperboy. And out of all of those people, they've all left comments. Some of them have asked questions, for which there are 5 that I said would be done in the blog. Some of those questions I did answer in comments, and it's purely just a time thing. It's not because their question was any less or any more than anything else. So I'm going to start off with Highlander, because if you've ever spoken or read text from Highlander, he's a very, very nice guy. He's a big Highlander fan, hence the tag. He wanted to know, would I accept everlasting life in the mould of the Highlander film, and would I want it? Now, regardless of everlasting life in the mould of Highlander, which is immortality, but that one has an ending where you're not exactly immortal unless, unless the last person on Earth is left alive of the immortals, because you chop people's heads off and you die. But immortality has been around as a question for donkey's years, and I've always thought about Doctor Who, where he's got like so many regenerations and all of that sort of stuff, which again is a sort of immortality. And there is all sorts of stories, through history where because of a picture on the wall, you are immortal unless that picture is destroyed. That's a very common one. But would I want immortality? For the same reasons that those films and books portray immortality. It's a curse. Doctor Who did it in Mordrin Undead as an episode where there was all these people that were dying, but they couldn't die. They were degrading. They were falling to bits. They needed all of the regenerations left of the Doctor to actually kill themselves, and that's what they wanted him to do, was die himself and give up all his regenerations to kill these people on this ship, because they experimented on getting immortal and failed. So do you really want that? Do you really want to see your friends and family die around you? Do you really want to fall in love and see that person grow old while you remain the same, and see them die and you move forward and you fall in love again and repeat ad infinitum? No, you don't. I can tell you now, immortality is a curse. There is an end to everything. I don't look forward to my end, and I'll talk about something else at the end where I've had some sad news yesterday. But we question our own mortality, and I do that all the time, and that's the whole purpose actually of doing this blog, is that I know that I'm going to come to an end, but I want to be remembered. I don't want to be a text in a book that says born and died. I don't want people to go through a graveyard and look at an unknown grave that's got my name on it and go, oh, I wonder who he was. It's why, we go to our grave sites and look at our family members and put flowers and remember them. But only while your bloodline is going on is that happening. And that's where dynasties come in. So, yeah. You've got your answer, Highlander. Now, Steve's 8-Bit Gaming. Oh, he's a great guy, Steve. He's doing incredibly well with his own gaming channel. Far better than me, you bastard. You great person, you. And he always asks me a question, and he's always very conscious that I'm not very well and asks how I am. We're not close, I can go round his house and have a cup of tea with him, and he phones me and I phone him and all of that sort of stuff. But he's done as close to it in the same way that I am with Meister, in the fact that I think about him constantly. I try to help him with his channel by just giving him some links that I've read up in case that might help him, all of that sort of stuff. And long will that go on, because just knowing him, how he writes and how he portrays himself, we've got so much in common. It'd be one of those sort of like people that would be best friends, because we'd go and see the same films together, we watch the same TV, etc, etc. You see what I mean? It's that type of buddy. So anyway, he's asked me a couple of questions, and he goes, will modern shows ever be as good as they were in the 70s and 80s? Because we consider the 70s and 80s to be with such fond memories. And I have to be honest with here that I always think of the 70s and 80s and even early 90s as being very strong in regards to TV and cinema, because that's me growing up and me learning all the time by watching shows, reading books, all of that sort of stuff. And as I get older and older, I see the new stuff and I don't see any changes, anything that's great. But I'm a person that's in their now teens and in their 20s that are watching what we're watching now in our age. It's not designed for us. I still see the good in TV shows. I mean, everybody has talked about shows that they watched last year and gone, oh, you know, the new Game of Thrones is coming out, I think, on Monday, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be a high point on people's talking in meetings and all sorts. You know, I mean, I remember being at work and my manager would have a weekly meeting and just to see how everybody is, not to talk about work stuff, and the first thing they'd say is, did anybody watch Game of Thrones, or did anybody watch Lock and Key, or did anybody watch, you know, all sorts of stuff. The show that's in the news is the one that was discussed, and other people would go, yeah, I've got Netflix, I watched that, or I can't wait till next week, all of that. And it's just it's really just a bond as a team thing when we can't bond together because we're all scattered around the country. But what I'm going off topic a bit here. Shows now are probably gold, but they're not gold to me. And shows that I saw in the 70s and 80s are gold and will remain so no matter how much I age, because I remember them and I remember how funny they were or how dramatic they were, and the wonderment of science fiction and everything else back then. And so my answer is an obvious no, they'll never be as good. And it has to be, because as much as I want to have me looking forward, I've always got one toe in the past. And nostalgia always comes in. And I do know that I watch an awful lot of things with rose-tinted glasses. And if you look at it, it's awful. But I also know that back then it was darn good. So that's the answer to that, Steve. He also wanted to know what my favourite looking Formula One car has been in any era. He knows that I watched the Formula One, and I've always watched the Formula One. It's something that my dad had a partial interest in, but it was something that I had a big interest in. It's that thing when you were a kid, when you had a scale extric track, and you always looked forward to that when you passed your test, you were going to have this car, and you had top trumps. And you used to go into school and you'd put the car down and say, there you are, I've got the Lamborghini, you know, whatever. And they go, well, I'm topping you because I've got the McLaren, whatever. Love top trumps. In fact, I'm thinking how reminiscent that was that nobody mentions the word top trumps much anymore. But to answer your question, Stephen, I do apologise I've talked so much. The earliest looking Formula One car that I fell in love with was the Lotus 72. It's very hard for me to describe this because if my editing skills were better, I'd be recording this and putting a little picture. But the Lotus had a very small fin. It was that came in. It was a very sleek looking car. It wasn't the best car, but it as a concept, it looked like the future. But the two cars are pretty much the two cars that he mentioned, actually. But I'm going to throw one in because so he mentioned one and I've not included it. So the one that I've included, which we both agree on, is the Williams FW14/B, which Mansell drove around in. When it comes to the late 80s and the early 90s, I was gripped by Formula One. This was a period of time where it was exciting. Racing was racing. Cars were optimized as best as they could, but they had a difference, which meant that one race, another car was favoured over another. Not so much these days. So yes, we both agree that that is an iconic car, and I loved that car. But then again, I was a big Mansell fan. The one I've mentioned that he hasn't is the McLaren Honda MP4/4, which is what Prost and Senna drove around in around about 1988. That was an iconic car in my eyes. I don't think it was that great around the test track, but it was absolutely a blur in the races. I mean, that car shifted. So I hope that's answered that for you, Steve, and brought back some memories. I think you've got that sort of brain where me just mentioning things like MP4/4 and that, you know exactly what car I'm talking about. And all these other people I'm worrying about are going to go and switch off and go, what the hell's this guy talking about? What a load of shit. I know nothing about what this guy's doing. I'm switching off. I hope that doesn't happen. Go and look it up if you are interested in it. And then Steve, he's brought in Foodgate. He wants to know, when it comes to jelly, am I a lime or an orange jelly person? To be quite honest, I haven't eaten jelly since school, I should think. Saying that, that might be a lie, because I might have had trifle. When my dad was around, he used to like making trifle. None of them, I'm going to say. Because I don't think you'd have lime, and I don't think you'd have orange in a trifle. You're more likely to have a raspberry or strawberry. And the last time I had jelly, I would have had it in a trifle. Saying that, I'm going to let you know into a little secret. When I was a kid, I was disgusting. I was the sort of person that took their medicine without water. I'd get the tablet and chew it. Oh, the mere thought that I used to do that. And I used to do it, I think, to get attention, to be quite honest, because my mum would go, oh, what are you doing? Oh, just disgusting. And I'd go, I don't care. I could do it. I'm hard. And that's silly. But jelly used to come in bars made out of little squares that you chopped up, and then you put hot water and then melt, and you'd stir it. I used to eat that stuff raw. Disgusting, really, what I used to do. And I can even now remember the taste of it in your mouth. You know, you have that texture. It was a rubbery type taste. Ugh. Steve, thank you very much for your comment. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you always for your support. So what have we got next? Jambon, favourite YouTube channels. Now I'm going to come across that in a little bit, because a question came up and it was answered in my .1 blog last week, because I missed Mainstay's question, and I apologise to Mainstay in his waffle the Friday that's just gone, and because it was a joke. He wanted to know of the new channels that's coming out, could I name the 5 channels and put them in order, and it was a joke. And I didn't say it was a joke. Even though I knew it was a joke, I thought people would know that instantly that Mainstay was joking. I do have favourite YouTube channels. I think it's a very good idea that I mention the channels that I watch. You will then know what makes me tick. and I am going to mention them because my family don't know what I watch, and they don't know why I watch them. So at the end of this, I'm going to explain what this week I've been watching and what channels those were. And it will then aid my family in the future to know what I've been watching. I don't think that's a bad thing at all, Jambon. I won't put them in order. It's just I'm going to start saying what those channels are. Some of it will be a bit ambiguous, and the reasons for those will be I watched it as a one-off because something came on that I was interested in. But anyway, that's going to happen. Colin Jones, he wanted to know, how have I handled the heat this year when we've had probably the best summer since 1976? And I think I've touched upon it, Colin, in past blogs the last couple of weeks. We've had a terrific amount of heat. We all know about what we think about the water board and their droughts and all of this sort of stuff, and the millions of gallons of water and all that sort of stuff. But I mentioned that I struggle more with heat than I do with cold, and that's because of something called hypertension or blood pressure, where I'm constantly feeling hot. You can imagine, I'm sure you've seen it, where there's a person at work and they've got rosy red cheeks, right? That's blood pressure, hypertension, right? This person probably is overweight, but not necessarily. And this person has therefore got a big problem, because not only has he got to wear the same clothes to get warm, when he gets overly warm, he can't take those clothes off. And that means he's going to sweat. And when he sweats, there's going to be BO. And when there's BO, people are thinking that's a sweaty, smelly guy over there. But he's got a medical condition, and it's hypertension, and he's getting warm, and he's going to feel uncomfortable all through the day. And then when he gets home and he has his shower and he gets, and when he goes to bed, he's sleeping on the top of the bed rather than being under the sheets. And then if he's married, this person, or if the person with hypertension is a girl and they're married to a bloke, hugging and so forth is uncomfortable. And during the summer, if you think about the insane temperatures of nearly 42 degrees that we've had, that particular person is probably now feeling the most alienated and isolated person. How I handled it, constant going into the toilet and washing my arms and hands and face, taking my blood pressure tablets to keep my blood pressure down, going on walks with just a t-shirt and trousers and shoes on, and feeling that breeze if there is any, having cold drinks with ice cubes in, drinking lots of water that I've got in the fridge in a big milk bottle, the 4-pint bottles you get from Sainsbury's. I've cleaned them all out, I've put water in there, put it in the fridge, I've then got cold water, all of that sort of stuff. And then just when it comes to cleansing, you don't use the hot tap so much. You're using cold water to keep yourself down. I haven't got air conditioning. I haven't got a fan. It's gotten very difficult in my room here, because if you can imagine, I've told people this before, I'm in an environment where there is 2 televisions, 2 monitors, 3 computers, console, a surround sound. You turn those on, they generate heat. But if you turn a fan on, it just pushes the heat somewhere else. It doesn't cool it down. You need an air conditioning unit for that. Thank God for driving around in a car with an air conditioning unit. And mine was regassed literally in March. So whenever I've had to go and do the shopping for my mother that's further away than walking, because obviously I don't walk everywhere because I've got to carry that shopping home. So if I go to Iceland, it's a bit further away. I've got the air conditioning on. Absolutely fantastic. It's the best thing since sliced bread if you're in a heat wave. And that's about it, Colin. I hope that's answered your question. And GTB Films has asked me a number of questions, and I've answered some in his text. But he brought something in that I've talked to you guys about already. Hot topic, okay, this is, because there are a number of people out there that are collectors, okay? And as you know, I've used two firms for collections that are UK based. One of them is Hatchet Parkworks, which is my Marvel graphic novel collection, and another company which I've had a love-hate relationship with, which is Eagle Moss. Now, at the moment, Eagle Moss have filed into liquidation. Some people think it's a long time coming. Other people are very dismayed because they've signed on to a subscription to get a Parkworks model to be built, and now they're 22 weeks in of a 56-week project, and the company's gone bust. I've seen this all the way through, and the reason I know this is because I mentioned a long time ago that I used to use Eagle Moss for the Marvel figurines. Okay, little lead figurines, and what Eagle Moss tend to do is they'll start off with a 100 issue run, and then they'll send to their subscribers, we're going to extend this to 150, and then you get close to that 150, constantly taking your money, and you're obviously going to keep going because you want to continue to have the whole collection. And then they'll say, we're going to go to 200 now, and it'll go to 200, and then they might then end. The problem with this is that they get behind with certain issues. You'll get to something like issue 42 and they'll say, sorry that your one got damaged. We're sending you out one as soon as one comes into stock, and you just keep going on and on and on, and that one never gets replaced. And you'll phone up their customer service and nothing will happen. And then what happened to me with Eagle Moss and the first Marvel figurines that I got was, just towards the end, stuff started to not appear. And I phoned up and I said, look, it's been about 8 weeks and it's supposed to come out fortnightly. I've had nothing. And they said, we had a problem with your payment, Mr. Giles. And I said, no, you've been taking the payment, you just stopped. And they said, oh, well, we've got a problem then, because the series is now ended. We've run out of all of the stock towards the end, so you're now going to be missing 6 of the very last ones that we don't know whether we're going to be able to fulfill for you. And I said, well, what about the ones midway that I've been phoning you weekly up about? And they've said, probably never going to be fulfilled. And then you have to go on eBay. You know that the series ended because it got to 200, which means that you've got to rely that somebody else doesn't want their stuff anymore and get them. I'm still missing 2 of that 200, and it knocks me bandy. And I know I can get them, but they want 50 quid for a little lead figurine that used to cost $7.99 weekly. And then you've got Hatchet Parkworks, which, as you know, I told you about. My credit card changed. I gave them my credit card details, but they kept billing me and not taking the money out. And there were issues missing, and they suddenly said I owed them £300 odd. And I said, I've been thinking that you've been taking that money out. And they said, no, we haven't. And so you owe us. And I said, hang on a minute. I gave you the card details. I'm quite willing to give you that money because I owe you it. But I've been phoning up for over 2 years about missing books. As a subscriber, in your small text, it says, as a subscriber, you will get every book. I did a deal with them and said, I will pay that bill if you get me those older books. They're still trying now to get those older books, and I withhold payment until so, and they're happy to do so. How long is it going to be before Hatchet Parkworks falls over as well? So what are my thoughts, GTB Films, of Eagle Moss? I feel for the collector and no one else. Whenever they end a run of a show, of a series of stuff, they move their whole premises somewhere else and have a different team on their customer support, and their customer support is atrocious. They've now started to flood the American side of the business for this building of the Enterprise, and they are in a worse position because they're 15 issues behind the UK. The UK know they're going bust. They're not going to get their bits. And the Americans are paying far more money because they have to actually pay the import duty on the issue. And it's got an electrical piece of a kit and metal parts on this kit. So, who do I feel for? The collector. What can they do about it? Bugger all. What will possibly happen is the model has obviously been built. That's because they had all the parts. If they molded the parts, I think that they'll fulfill it. If they haven't molded the parts, they'll give it to a Japanese firm to fulfill the order. It's the only thing I can think that's going to happen. It is the worst gamble you make, is to pick up these graphic novels or these lead figurines or these part builds where you can build the DeLorean from Back to the Future or the Enterprise. That's my rant over, because I find them atrocious as a company. And if you go on Facebook, there's so many people that like them, and I don't know why. This week then, what have I been doing? Well, if anybody's been following me, you know that I've done some gameplay on Thrust Extreme, Wings, and a live show on Star Valor. All in all, I mean, I get far less viewers watching those things, but I have great fun in showing my gameplay off. As long as people want me to do some gameplay stuff, I'll do it. It's not like I'm doing it as a service. I do it because it's fun. But if there aren't that many people watching, I sometimes think, well, what's the point? And then I remember a game my family might want to watch and know, what games did he like playing? Did he? Oh, Space Invaders, right? That's old, you know. People will watch that stuff and go, he liked this game, he disliked this game. And I have to remember and focus and go, it's not about the subscribers, it's not about the views, you're doing this for your family. But when you see the figures and how many hours people have watched and they've shut off within 30 seconds, you think to yourself, what's the worth? I'll keep going, guys. That's all I can say to you, while I think it's worth it. And if I think my family would be interested in it. I hope that's okay with you guys. I really want to continue, but spending lots of hours sort of planning it, really. You know, I search. You see, what I'm doing is I'm searching for the game to do and then having a quick play. It actually does only take me 20 minutes to do it because there's no editing, right? But there's an amount of hours that goes into searching for that one that goes, oh, I think that's interesting, I'll do that one. And from that perspective, why bother? I don't need to play a game. In fact, does the game take anything away from my troubles at the moment? And quite literally at the moment, those problems are so astronomical, playing a game doesn't take anything away. Excuse me again. But just to let you know, I'm going to continue with them. But, you know, like I say, just bear in mind it's sometimes disheartening to look at analytics. And, of course, I'm a big numbers person because I deal with assets at work. So. Right, so what have I watched on you? What have I watched on TV? Let's go through that first. So there's a new show called Day of the Dead. And obviously Day of the Dead is Romero's cinema masterpieces that have now turned into a TV series. It only started last week. I watched the first one, ploddy type thing. Could it get good? Possibly. Watch this space. I'm watching that at the moment. And then there's another one very similar called, and it's just got a singular word, it's called From, which again is about a village or a town and people coming to life that are dead and all this. And you just think to yourself, all these shows, Walking Dead, From, Day of the Dead, you're just going along the same track. What is different about this show from the last one? Day of the Dead's got a name against it. From doesn't. It's a Sci-Fi Channel thing. I don't think that one will continue, if you wanted my thoughts on it. And because there hasn't been much on TV, I've been watching old stuff. So I'm a very big person who likes things like The Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and all of that sort of stuff. Anthology stuff. So I'm a big Hitchcock fan. So there has been a rewatch on Sky Arts of the Alfred Hitchcock Presents from the 50s and 60s. They're only half an hour long. It gets to a point in the afternoon where I've done my walking, I've done some stuff for my mum. I need to get myself out of my thinking about work and the stress it causes. Sitting down and watching a half-hour Alfred Hitchcock Presents does the trick for me. So I've been watching that. But sleep at night's been difficult. So I started to watch again something that I watched, must be 6 years ago, called Halt and Catch Fire, which takes me back to the days of the IBM XT, where a company tried to reverse engineer a BIOS and then come out with the very first laptop computer or something similar. And they got found out, and then they had a lawsuit against them, and then there was an agreement to pay so much money, but they continued to develop this thing. It's all about the sights and sounds of the late 70s, early 80s, which makes you watch it, the fashions, what's on telly, you know, you can see in the background is something that you'll probably remember. And then it's all about the computers that we were going to be playing on later on, you know, the IBM XTs, the IBM Juniors, the laptops that were coming out, what the operating systems were going to do. It's the terminology that they're using that go, God, I haven't thought about terminal ring networks and things for years, you know, Northbridge, Southbridge, all that sort of stuff. Watch it. It lasted about 4 or 5 seasons. You can buy them, but you can easily get them on streaming services. So I said that I was going to talk about what I've watched sort of outside my own sort of like little community. If I want to know something about what's going on in comics, books and omnibuses, I go to someone called Near Mint Condition. He's got a deal, I think, with a bloke at Marvel, and he tells him about what's going to be released this time next year and what the possible price is and what those issues are going to cover. And you can then go to Amazon and basically pre-order these. If Amazon have been watching as well, or has got the marketing about it and have decided to put it up as a pre-order item. He gets information so early that I won't see it even as a pre-order for the next 4 months. So that's how good that guy is. And he's very, very nice. He covers an awful lot of things like computer games as well. What's been going on in the Marvel world in Disney Plus and all sorts of stuff. He does a retrospective of movies and all sorts of stuff. Brilliant. Absolutely love that guy. So that's one. Near Mint Condition. Gem Mint is the next one, and that's to do with statues. Now, I haven't bought a statue in about 12 months, so I've seen less and less of his channel, and he's just moved house. But if I ever wanted to know about a new quarter scale Hulk figurine that was going to cost about $1,000 from Sideshow, I was watching him, because he would order it, put it together, and then show you it. And he would go to the shows that are 12 months in advance of what's going to be produced this year. So he would get a backdoor pass, and you'd see the molds and the figurines a year before they're going to be something that you can order. So that was another one. And of course there are mainstays that I watch, like RMC's Retro Roundup. So the Retro Man Cave's RMC's Retro Roundup that comes out on a Saturday, I will generally watch. Okay, but the rest of them are all on the fly. This is what I watch outside of Discord and my friends. Now, my friends, you know, like Steve 8-Bit Gaming, Retro, you know, Robert's Retro Gaming, LFC's V Blog, Ponder, Meister, they're all ones that you know I watch because I tell you every week I've been watching your stuff. Okay, and Rabbit is another one of those. So this week, what have I watched? So let's have a look. As you know, I was looking into my photography, so I did an awful lot of searches on camera settings and how to capture images in low light and what settings I need to do for my Canon. So there's going to be various web YouTubes that are going to have tutorials on that. I looked at the review of the VCS Controller. Now the VCS Controller I've been very interested in. It came out with the new Atari console about a year and a half ago. Failed project as far as I know, but they did get it out to production. But they brought out a controller that is basically a single, you know, it looks like the old Atari controller, but of course they've added a spinner to it. It's the only controller I know that's manufactured, mass marketed, that's got a spinner, but they're only selling them in America at the moment, and eBay prices are astronomical. So I keep looking at, has anybody done a review of the spinner? And there's one guy that yesterday did a review of it, and it looks very exciting. It actually worked well. So I still want one. This week there's been the announcement that Doctor Who Season 2 has been announced as a collection for Blu-ray collectors. We're talking William Hartnell and 1964. So that's a big deal, because BBC have now made a public announcement that they're not going to do animated episodes for the missing episodes. Anybody that knows Doctor Who will know that stuff got junked. For a long time BBC have been making animated shows to fill in the blanks. They're no longer doing that. Too costly, not enough people watching, I believe is the reason for that. Which means that when it comes to the collections, there's going to be missing episodes. What do you do about missing episodes? And Season 2 of William Hartnell's era has only got 2 actual episodes missing, and they haven't animated them. So the bad news is they're going to be done with photo restocks with the soundtrack, because what we do know about Doctor Who and the missing episodes is there are audio tracks, like radio broadcasts of actual episodes. So you can actually listen to 25 minutes of audio. You just got no picture with it. Those have been cleaned up. There were always photographs being taken on the sets at the time of the recording of the show. They're going to use those photos along with the audio track to rebuild the episode, and of which there are going to be 2. So this thing is a 9-disc behemoth, because that's how many stories they used to make back in the 60s. Doctor Who started off sort of like in the autumn and carried on to early summer. Every week for 25 minutes there was an episode. There were 9 stories, of which those stories probably had about 4 episodes each. And I'm talking episodes here, so there's only 2 episodes missing. So obvious, therefore, that one was going to come out to celebrate the fact that next year, in 2023, is the 60th anniversary. SpiderMan. Okay, the game has been launched on the PC under Steam, and it's basically the game that came out on the PlayStation 4 a couple of years back. 3-4 years now. Fantastic game. I played it to death. There's a remaster on the PS5. I've got that one there. The PC version has just come out, selling at the whopping price that I paid 4 years ago, which I think is bad. And of course, it's broken all game sales on Steam. Good news for me, because I'm a big Spider-Man fan, means that they're getting more revenue to make more games. Bad news for anybody who wants the game, because you now know that the PC version is now probably the best version to get, because you can buy a new graphic card and a new sound card and have a monitor that's 4K, and you've got a better image than the PS5. You're buying the game again, fellas, twice. Don't do it. You've got a good enough version, and it's pretty shit on a PS5 or a PS4 Pro. So I'm happy and I'm sad, because I think that the price should be dropped. But there we go. Rabbit, which is part of our community, which I've mentioned before, he did a show a couple of days ago on Space Pac-Man, a homebrew for the Atari 2600. And I was mesmerized by this, because I thought, Space Pac-Man, what the hell's all this about? And you really do need to go and see his show, watch it, because that's not Pac-Man but it's the only way that you could do Pac-Man in space. And if that's piqued your interest, go and watch it. Very entertaining. I then did some searches because I'm doing some stuff on my keyboard. Most overplayed piano songs on YouTube. Eye-opening stuff, all this, and I'm sorry if it's a bit boring, but this is what I've watched this week. Retro recipes. I don't watch this every week, only when something interesting came up. On Saturday, he did a documentary on the kit car, you know, from Knight Rider. Found it interesting. He's done his normal humour, which gets on top of you, gets on your tits, to be quite honest. If you wanted to periphractic, he puts everybody's name based on that show, so he calls himself Periphractic Hasselhoff type thing. You'll get the idea. It's a nice documentary, not particularly great if you not into that type of humour. So I just want to mention that of the shows that I've watched this week, they have been from Steve's 8-Bit Gaming, Robert's Retro Gaming, RMC's Retro Roundup, LFC's Vlog. Please watch his blog, it was great. Meister's interview this week was great, and I was part of his waffle. Please go and watch that waffle. And then I've got one topic to bring up, which is for you guys to have a discussion and then comment about. I'm wondering how many electronic devices is too many. Okay, Meister brought up a thing the other day to say he wanted to record his show, and he found out he only had 1% of battery. And then he went to some other device and it only had 1% of battery. And he got to the understanding, well, yeah, because I don't use these items far enough for me to recognize that my battery was low and it depreciated anyway. And this made me think, how many guys do you think is too many? Do you think we encompass ourselves with too many devices because we're in the modern era? Just to give you an idea, I've got a Canon camera, but I've also got a camera in my phone, right? I don't use my Canon camera very often, so it's got a battery. So I'm forever finding that the battery is dead and I've got to charge it up. And of course my phone, I have to charge up every day. So I'm spending an awful lot of electricity doing that. And then there's my tablet. I've got a tablet, but I've also got and just to let you know, I don't use these every day. I have got at the moment 11 laptops, for which 3 have regular use. Now, if you think about it, every time you turn your PC on, Microsoft sends you an update for Windows 10. Okay? If I don't turn these devices on every week, I get behind on updates, which means that when I get a laptop that I don't use every day, but I use it, say, for emulation, or I do one for production, or I do one for video watching on, or whatever, as soon as I switch it on, updates. I spend more time doing updates than I do getting the damn thing out to be productive. So how many is too many? Now, obviously, you can always come back and say, 11 laptops now, there's your problem, right? You don't need that many. You need one. Wow. I want you to look seriously at yourself and say, I bet you've got a tablet, I bet you've got a laptop, I bet you've got a PC, right? There's 3, and I haven't even thought about adding more in. So, and then smartwatches. Okay, now this particular smartwatch is a Garmin Fenix 6, I think. It charges, it takes 4 hours to charge, and it holds the charge for 18 days, okay, depending on usage. But there are those smartwatches out there by Apple and Samsung, and they connect to your phone, and they do the same thing as this, and those charge for about 6 or 7 hours, and they have firmware upgrades, because there are firmware upgrades for your phone, and so they don't link up as well. Let's see if I can get the focal ring back on. I go back and then forth. Oh dear, this is going to look bad for later on. Oh no, I've gone out of focus. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get this back. I'm sorry, guys. There we go. I tried my best. To get back on as a conversation piece, I want you to just think about how many is too many. Think about those consoles that you switch on that you haven't done for weeks, and you've turned it on, it's got to update. How many is too many? Are we becoming a throwaway nation? And I look forward to listening to any of the comments you bring back. Thanks for supporting me, guys, for my blog. I hope you found this entertaining. I'll always do one next week. Please look forward to Panther's Sid show. We all know Panther, the rinky-dink Panther. He's big-headed, his production values. He's a bastard. We love him to bits. But look forward to that today. And thank you for watching. And I hope you'll be watching next week, where I hope I'll have some more news for you. I'm going to be bringing back the big box games and what I bought this week. Fortunately, there's nothing to show you what I bought this week. Nothing came through the post. So that's a good thing. I've saved some cash. So till next week, bye-bye.